The evening air in rural America has a way of speaking to those willing to listen. If you sit quietly on a wooden porch as the sun begins to slip behind the tree line, you will hear the country symphony. The steady hum of cicadas, the distant lowing of cattle, and the gentle creak of a rocking chair on pine boards. If you look upward, you might notice a detail as classic as the red barn. The ceiling is painted a soft pale shade of light blue. To modern eyes, this is a charming design choice, but to our grandparents, it was a practical shield born of folklore, survival, and a deep understanding of nature. In the lean times of the Great Depression, every brushstroke was a decision made out of necessity. To paint your porch ceiling blue was to participate in a tradition that was both a spiritual defense and a highly effective natural system of pest control. To understand this practice, we travel back long before the economic hardships of 1932 to the coastal low country of South Carolina and Georgia. Here, the Gullah Geechee people preserved the traditions of their West African ancestors. In their folklore, the world was shared with spirits, including haints, restless souls that had not moved on. The haints possessed a critical weakness. They could not cross water, nor could they fly into the open sky. To protect their homes, the Gullah people painted their porch ceilings, door frames, and shutters a specific pale shade of blue-green. They believed a spirit seeing this color would mistake it for water or the open heavens and turn back. This protective hue became known as haint blue. As the decades passed, this coastal tradition traveled inland, carried by families seeking work. It climbed into the ridges of the Appalachian Mountains, spread across the plains of the Midwest, and found a home on the wide front porches of rural farmhouses. In this migration, the original spiritual meaning of haint blue was often replaced by the practical wisdom of the working class. The farmers of Ohio and homesteaders of Kansas did not necessarily believe in spirits, but they painted their porches blue nonetheless. They observed a simple fact. Porches with blue ceilings remained clean and free from the constant nuisance of nesting insects. In an era when self-reliance was the difference between survival and ruin, any method that made the home safer without requiring hard-earned cash was quickly adopted. It was an active workspace and a sanctuary from the sweltering heat of houses with no fans. It was where families snapped beans, mended clothes, and rested after long days in the fields. But this sanctuary was constantly under siege by stinging insects, particularly paper wasps and dirt daubers, which viewed the wooden overhang as a perfect nesting ground. In the early 1930s, a severe sting was a major hazard. Without easy access to medicine, allergic reactions could be fatal, and stings could infect, taking a farmer away from his fields. With no money for chemical sprays, finding a natural preventive way to deter these pests was a matter of basic household safety. The secret to why the blue ceiling works lies in the biology and visual perception of the nesting insects themselves. Wasps and mud daubers are highly visual creatures, relying on their compound eyes to select nesting sites. In the early spring, a queen wasp looks for a secure, sheltered location to build her colony. In the wild, she searches for deep crevices in rock faces or the dark undersides of thick tree limbs, places offering protection from rain and predators. These natural shelters are characterized by deep shadows. When the insect flies onto a porch, she looks up at the ceiling, searching for that same darkness. If the ceiling is painted a pale light blue, the insect's compound eyes are tricked. The light blue surface reflects ambient daylight in a way that mimics the open sky. To the wasp, there is no solid wooden ceiling, only the exposed heavens. This optical illusion completely disrupts the wasp's nesting instinct. An insect will not build a nest where it believes it is completely exposed to the elements and predators. The queen wasp perceives the blue ceiling as an open space where rain will drown her larvae and birds will easily spot her. Confused by the bright, sky-like surface, she will abandon the porch and fly elsewhere in search of a darker overhang. By working in harmony with the insect's natural programming rather than trying to eradicate them with costly chemicals, our grandparents kept their living spaces clear of stings for the price of a few scraps of paint. It was a classic example of the 1932 mindset, observing nature and applying a simple, low-cost solution. The benefits of the blue porch ceiling did not stop with wasps. Spiders, too, were deterred by this simple color choice. A porch is a natural magnet for spiders because evening lights attract moths and flies, creating a plentiful hunting ground. Spiders, however, require stable, quiet corners to spin their webs. They seek out the dark areas where the wood meets the joists, where they can sit undisturbed and invisible. The light blue paint, by reflecting and scattering the ambient light, eliminates these dark, shadowy hiding spots. The corners of the porch become bright and exposed. Spiders, which rely on shadow to remain undetected, find these blue surfaces uncomfortable. Without the security of darkness, they are far less likely to spin their webs on a blue ceiling, keeping the porch free of sticky cobwebs and reducing crawling pests. To appreciate the science of this effect, one must understand how light interacts with the pale blue pigment. In the early morning and late evening, when the sun is low, the light hitting the blue ceiling is scattered, creating a soft glow that extends the perceived daylight hours for the insects. This light scattering confuses the circadian rhythms of many crawling and flying pests. Flies and mosquitoes, which tend to congregate in dark air as the sun sets, are disoriented by the artificial brightness of the blue canopy. Our grandparents did not have spectrometers to measure light wavelengths, but they watched the world around them. They noticed that flies did not gather, spiders did not spin, and wasps did not build on blue porches, and they had the common sense to copy what worked. This reliance on observation and natural materials was the cornerstone of the Great Depression household. In 1932, when unemployment was high and cash was scarce, self-reliance was the only safety net. If a farmer needed to protect his house, he could not purchase commercial, petroleum-based paints. A single gallon of factory paint could cost equivalent to several days' wages, cash that was desperately needed for food. But poverty did not mean neglect. The survivors of that era understood that they could manufacture almost anything they needed from raw materials found on their own land. They looked at the earth, the forests, and the livestock, and they saw a chemistry set waiting to be utilized. To create the paint for their blue ceilings, they refined recipes for milk paint and whitewash that had been used by pioneer families. Milk paint is one of the oldest, most durable, and most environmentally friendly coatings known to human history. Long before the advent of modern acrylics, latex, and chemical solvents, people coated their furniture and homes with mixtures of milk and natural earth pigments. The primary binder in milk paint is casein, a protein found in milk. When casein is separated from the fat of the milk and combined with an alkaline substance, it undergoes a chemical reaction called polymerization. The protein molecules cross-link and bind together, forming a hard, water-insoluble substance. This natural polymer adheres to wood fibers with incredible tenacity, sinking deep into the pores of the timber rather than sitting on top of the surface. For the rural family, skimmed milk was a readily available byproduct of daily chores, making it the perfect cost-free base for their home-brewed coatings. To turn this milk protein into a durable paint, it was mixed with slaked lime, chemically known as calcium hydroxide. Lime was a staple material on every farm, used to sweeten soil, disinfect chicken coops, and whitewash barn walls. When slaked lime is mixed with water and skimmed milk, the lime acts as the alkaline agent that activates the casein. As the mixture is applied to the wood and begins to dry, the slaked lime reacts with carbon dioxide in the surrounding air. The lime slowly converts back into calcium carbonate, which is the chemical compound that makes up limestone. In essence, as the milk paint cured, it turned into a thin sheet of stone bonded directly to the wood fibers. This created a coating that was tough, weather-resistant, and capable of protecting the wooden porch ceiling from rot for decades without cracking. The use of slaked lime in the paint mixture provided an additional layer of pest control. Slaked lime is highly alkaline, and even after it cures into calcium carbonate, the paint film maintains a high pH level. This alkaline environment is extremely hostile to mold, mildew, and wood-rotting fungi. By painting the porch ceiling with a lime-based mixture, our grandparents prevented the damp mold that often accumulates on outdoor wooden structures. Furthermore, this alkalinity acts as a natural deterrent to wood-boring insects such as termites and carpenter bees. These pests will not chew on wood that has been coated in lime, as the mineral is abrasive to their mouth parts and toxic to their digestive systems. The dry texture of the lime paint also acts as a barrier, absorbing the protective oils of crawling pests and causing them to avoid the surface. But how did they obtain the blue color that completed this shield? Natural blue pigments were rare and expensive, far out of reach for a family struggling in 1932. The solution was found in the laundry basket. Every household during the Great Depression utilized laundry bluing, a cheap product containing synthetic ultramarine blue or cobalt blue pigment used to keep white linens from yellowing. By adding a small amount of this blue concentrate to the final rinse water, homemakers made their clothes appear bright and sparkling white. Because laundry bluing was a universal household staple, it was readily available. Our grandparents realized that by adding a few generous pours of laundry bluing to their homemade milk and lime whitewash, they could transform the plain white paint into the perfect sky-like shade of haint blue for next to nothing. The resulting milk paint was vastly superior to the modern chemical paints we buy today. Modern exterior paints are typically made of acrylic resins, which dry to form a non-breathable plastic film. While this looks good initially, it creates long-term problems. Wooden structures absorb moisture from the surrounding air. When the sun heats the wood, this trapped moisture tries to escape as water vapor. Because acrylic paint is non-porous, the vapor cannot pass, building up pressure until the paint blisters and peels away, causing the wood to rot silently. Milk paint, by contrast, is highly vapor permeable. It allows water vapor to pass freely through the paint film, ensuring that the wood remains dry and healthy. This breathability is the reason why many historic buildings coated with milk paint nearly a century ago still possess their original, rot-free wooden ceilings today. Beyond the science, the blue porch ceiling held a deep psychological significance for the families of the Great Depression. The porch was the heart of the home's social life, a vital bridge between the family and the wider community. On hot summer nights, when the air inside was stifling, the porch was a cool refuge where the family gathered to talk and share the burdens of the day. The soft blue ceiling had a calming, cooling effect on the human mind. The color mimicked the serene sky of a clear morning, bringing a sense of peace to a simple dwelling. It extended the feeling of daylight, making the porch feel bright and welcoming, even as darkness closed in. It was a space where neighbors could find mutual support in a time of national crisis. The blue ceiling was a visual reminder that despite the hardships of the earth, the sky above remained clear and hopeful. The post-war economic boom brought a flood of cheap, mass-produced consumer goods and chemical solutions. The chemical industry promised a future of effortless living, where synthetic sprays would eliminate every insect, and plastic coatings would replace the need for traditional wood care. People were taught to look down on the homemade recipes of their parents as signs of poverty. The simple chemistry of milk paint and laundry bluing was forgotten, replaced by latex paints and commercial pesticides that required a continuous outlay of cash. Within 2 generations, the understanding of why our grandparents painted their porches blue was lost, remembered only as a design style with no utility. We traded our self-reliance for the convenience of the commercial marketplace. Today, we are beginning to see the true cost of this dependence. Our homes are coated in toxic chemicals that peel, requiring expensive repainting. We spray our living spaces with synthetic neurotoxins to keep insects at bay, unaware of the long-term health consequences for our families. As the economy becomes more volatile and the cost of home maintenance rises, many are looking back to the wisdom of the past. Reclaiming the self-reliant habits of 1932 is not about rejecting progress. It is about recognizing that our grandparents solved many of the problems we struggle with today, using simple, natural, and low-cost methods. By understanding the science behind the blue porch ceiling, we can protect our homes, save our hard-earned money, and live in greater harmony with the world around us. If you wish to apply this traditional wisdom to your own home, you can easily prepare a batch of authentic blue milk paint using the same basic recipe that got our grandparents through the Great Depression. To begin, you will need 1 gallon of fresh skimmed milk. It is critical that the milk is completely skimmed, as any remaining fat will eventually spoil, causing the paint to smell rancid and fail to cure. Pour the milk into a clean bucket. To this, you will slowly add 20 ounces of agricultural slaked lime, which can be purchased for a few dollars at any garden center. Stir the mixture continuously with a clean wooden paddle to prevent the lime from clumping. As you stir, the mixture will thicken and warm slightly as the chemical reaction between the lime and the milk protein begins. Once the mixture is smooth and has the consistency of cream, it is ready for the pigment. To achieve the classic shade of haint blue, you will add laundry bluing or powdered cobalt blue pigment. Add the color slowly, stirring thoroughly until you reach a soft, sky blue shade. Remember that milk paint dries to a lighter, more pastel shade than it appears when wet, so aim for a slightly deeper blue than your desired final result. Because this paint contains no chemical preservatives, it must be used within 24 hours of mixing. The wood surface to be painted must be clean, dry, and free of any modern paint, as milk paint requires open wood pores to bond. Apply the paint using a stiff, natural bristle brush, working it deep into the grain of the wood. A single coat will dry to a beautiful, velvety matte finish, creating a durable stone-like bond that will not peel. The results of this traditional coating are immediately apparent. The porch ceiling takes on a soft, luminous quality that seems to capture and hold natural light. Wasps that fly onto the porch will hover for a moment, confused by the bright blue expanse, before turning and flying away to seek shelter elsewhere. Spiders will avoid the corners, and the overall insect activity will drop significantly. Furthermore, the wooden structure will be protected from rot and mold by the highly alkaline, breathable barrier of the lime milk mixture. This is not a temporary cosmetic fix. It is a lifetime preservation system that improves with age. As the years pass, the milk paint will cure even harder, resisting the humid summer air and proving that the simple materials of 1932 are still superior to the complex chemical products of the modern era. This simple project is a gateway to a completely different way of thinking about your home. It challenges the modern assumption that we must spend large sums on commercial products to maintain our properties. It shows that with a little knowledge, a bit of effort, and some basic materials, we can achieve results that are healthier, more durable, and far cheaper. This was the mindset that allowed the survivors of the Great Depression to face the worst economic collapse in modern history with dignity and strength. They did not wait for someone else to solve their problems. They observed the world, learned the laws of nature, and built their own security from the ground up. This spirit of independence is the greatest legacy they left us, and it is a legacy we must work to preserve. As we look to the future, the lessons of 1932 are becoming more relevant than ever. The economic pressures facing modern families are real, and the reliance on complex, fragile global systems leaves many feeling vulnerable. Reclaiming the forgotten skills of our grandparents is a powerful way to build resilience in your own household. The blue porch ceiling is just one small thread in a vast tapestry of traditional knowledge. Our grandparents had recipes for everything from homemade cleaners to natural remedies. They knew how to preserve food for years without electricity, how to heat a home during a freeze on a handful of wood, and how to turn basic, inexpensive ingredients into nourishing meals. These skills were not hobbies, they were the essential tools of survival. To help you transition your home to a self-sufficient, low-cost powerhouse, we have gathered all of this invaluable historical knowledge into a comprehensive, easy-to-use guide. We call it the Complete 1932 System, and it is divided into 3 detailed volumes. Volume 1 is the 1932 Pantry Blueprint, which reveals the secrets of long-term food preservation, pantry stocking, and the lost recipes that kept families fed on pennies a day. Volume 2 is the Home Preservation and Self-Reliance Manual, containing the exact recipes for homemade household chemicals, natural pest control systems like the blue porch paint, and traditional remedies for common ailments. Volume 3 is the 90-day implementation calendar, providing a step-by-step plan to transition your home to a self-reliant powerhouse over the course of 3 months. This system is not about living in hardship. It is about reclaiming your freedom and your hard-earned money. It is a printable guide that you can download, print out, and keep in your kitchen, ensuring that this vital knowledge is always at your fingertips, even if the power goes out or the internet goes down. By learning these traditional methods, you can save thousands of dollars every year, reduce your dependence on commercial systems, and build a secure, resilient home for your family. To get your copy of the Complete 1932 System, Volume 1, 2, and 3, simply click the link in the first pinned comment below this video. Don't let this precious wisdom slip away. Reclaim the independence of 1932 today. As you close your screen and step out onto your own porch tonight, take a moment to look up at the ceiling. Think of the generations of mothers, fathers, and grandparents who stood in that same space, looking up at that same soft, pale blue color. They faced economic ruin, yet they did not lose their grit or their connection to the earth. They built homes that lasted, grew food that nourished, and kept their families safe through observation, thrift, and self-reliance. The blue ceiling above them was a symbol of their quiet strength, a reminder that even in the darkest times, we can find natural, elegant solutions if we are only willing to look, to learn, and to work with our own 2 hands. Thank you for listening, and may you find peace and independence under your own blue sky.